Sure. Oh, dang. No, it is. Too much going on. Much. Oop. Oh. Hmm. I love Frost so much. Frost is best. It's funny how they call it the abbreviation on their own site. I know. Ice Crown, Grizzly Hills. Yeah, sounds 45. And then, Alright, I guess I could just. There's like nothing here. It's here. Hey, this is such a shame. What's over here? Let's see. Crystal Song Forest. Forest necklace. Yeah. Chronicle of some in the book. That's pretty.
Hello guys, this is Donos Movies, and today I'll be
So
giving you
boring.
the lore of the Crystal Song Forest,
I'm guessing
explaining
it is,
why this zone is so vastly different compared to
Some Scandinavian or some.
any other zone in Northrend. So, without further ado, let's get into the lore. Before the War of the Ancients, the Night Elven Empire spanned over most of Azeroth. Many outposts were established all across the continent, and one of these outposts was a city named Chandral, located in a forest known as Moonsong. When the Sundering struck the world, the landmass fractured completely, and Chandral and its inhabitants found themselves isolated in the harsh lands of the newly formed continent Northrend. The highborn denizens were completely cut off from their cousins, and due to their distance from the New Well of Eternity in Nordrassil, they were exposed to many diseases and various other problems.
And
For thousands of years they lived like this, and they had the exact same fate as the High Elves who settled in the Eastern Kingdom. However, unlike Datramar's followers, these Highborn didn't possess any vials of the Well of Eternity to just create a new Sunwell or any significant source of power, so desperate they resorted to scouring the Moonsong Forest for every bit of power they could find in order to sustain themselves. Things were looking pretty bleak, but one day they accidentally encountered the Blue Dragonflight. They witnessed as the dragons turned living things into crystal, extracting power from them. The dragons themselves performed these acts out of sheer curiosity, but the elves were completely stunned and saw this as the only way to end their suffering forever. Initially, they attempted to contact the Blue Dragonflight, but they were constantly ignored and in some cases even met with open hostility. So, left with no choice, they decided to learn this technique by force, infiltrating the lair of the Blue Dragons, the Nexus. The operation was successful and they gathered intelligence on the dragon magic, but unfortunately, greed drove them to take a lot more than they had come for. The elves, on top of just uncovering these secrets, also stole many powerful artifacts contained within the Nexus, and by doing so they triggered wards, sending the entire Dragonflight into a frenzy. The infiltrators did manage to escape, But the consequences were much worse than just a few
I wanna do
thieves
something about
dying.
the origin.
One day, dozens of blue dragons descended upon Chandrel filled with rage, ready to destroy these lesser creatures. The elves, feasting annihilation, gathered on a cliff overlooking Moonsong and attempted to use the new technique in order to crystallize a small part of the forest so that they can gather the power and use it to battle the dragons. Unfortunately, this proved to be a huge disaster, and their reckless spell set off a blinding explosion visible from all over Azeroth. The entire Moonsong forest was crystallized instantly, and the physical forms of every living creature was shattered. The blue dragons sensed the disaster and managed to escape before it happened,
Wait,
but
you do
the
that?
elves, a blinding explosion, a small part of the forest so that they can gather the power and use it to battle the dragons. Unfortunately, this proved to be a huge disaster, and their reckless spell set off a blinding explosion visible from all over Azeroth. Small part of the forest so that they can gather. Gatherers did manage to escape, but the consequences were much worse than just a few thieves dying. One day, dozens of blue dragons descended upon Chandrel filled with rage, ready to destroy these lesser creatures. The elves, feasting annihilation, gathered on a cliff overlooking Moonsong and attempted to use the new technique in order to crystallize a small part of the forest so that they can gather the power and use it to battle the dragons. Unfortunately, this proved to be a huge disaster, and their reckless spell set off a blinding explosion visible from all over Azeroth. The entire Moonsong forest was crystallized instantly, and the physical forms of every living creature was shattered. The blue dragons sensed the disaster and managed to escape before it happened, but the elves were not of such luck. Their spirits, warped by the spell, were cursed to mindlessly wander this haunted land that now became known as the Crystalsong Forest. Alright, and that is all I have for this video. Do leave your thoughts on what you would like to see next, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and also like the video as it really helps out and keeps all the videos going. Thanks a lot for taking the time out of the day to watch this video, and see you next time.
This video is brought to you in collaboration with Wowhead.com.
Okay. Story.
Hello everyone.
I think the dragons were created by the first one, right? Dragonflight. Black Dragonflight, story of. Yep, Dawn of the Aspects. That's what I want. And then go. What's his name? Bel. I love his accent. I think it's like French. Yo. Or speaks. I know Afron speaks.
Hello everyone. I've uploaded the story of Dawn of the Aspects before. But back then, my innocent self used a bit of video material from the movie How to Tame a Dragon, which the YouTube copyright system didn't appreciate. Luckily, we have Kalis who worked on magic to bring the story to life, so here's the re-upload of Dawn of the Aspects. I hope you'll enjoy. Also, as a side note, it's pretty cool to listen back to the speculation at the end of this video in correlation with the information we have right now with the new chronicles and whatnot. Pretty damn awesome. Alrighty, the whole setup is that the four aspects, Alexstrasza, Ysera, Nosdormu and Kalik, come together at Wyrmrest Temple as they always do. However, since they fulfill their destiny, the older aspects don't see the point anymore.
For the dawning of the Age of Mortals has begun.
Kalik, who only recently received his aspect powers, wants the group to stay together, but he fails to convince the others. They plan to split up the Wyrmrest Accord with the next meeting. Kalik flies over the bones of Galakrond, father of all dragons, and inside the bones he finds a strange artifact. This artifact unwillingly drags him into the mind of past Malygos. This has some nasty side effects on him, since the relic is not working as it should. Being so close to the corpse of Galakrond has corrupted the device. It takes control over Kalik, forces him to transform between dragon and human, and it makes him fly around the world without him even knowing. Eventually, Jaina finds out about Kalik's predicament and she tries to find a way of saving him. As I said, Kalik enters past Malygos' mind, and with past Malygos, I mean Malygos before the aspects receive their powers. Malygos, the Proto-Drake. In this time, the Proto-Drakes are still very primal. Most can't think beyond eat, sleep and reproduce, but some are starting to evolve to a higher level. The future 5 aspects, Malygos, Alexstrasza, Ysera, Nosdormu and Neltharion, are of course amongst those Proto-Drakes already evolved. The problem that they're facing is in this time Galakrond all of a sudden is starting to hunt Proto-Drakes and is starting to hunt in their area. Galakrond is not a dragon, instead he's a mutated Proto-Drake. What happened was that he became so big that the food in his area couldn't sustain him anymore. To survive, he started to eat his own kind, and that, even amongst these primal Proto-Drakes, was simply not done. This also had a weird side effect on him. On one part is that he pukes out his victims, and these victims become zombie drakes. They hunger for the flesh of their own kind, they have an attack, a breath attack that melts away flesh, and they can bite others to transport the disease, turning those into zombies. Another effect was that it transformed Galakrond even more, made him even bigger and even more hungry. Eventually he would become so hungry that he would start to eat the zombie drakes. Yes, the drakes that he already had devoured, he puked those out, they become zombie drakes, and then he would devour them once again because he was just so hungry. Thankfully, the second time that he puked them out, they wouldn't come back to life. Anyways, besides that disgusting little fact, he became a threat to the Proto-Drakes, so something had to be done. The first fight was Galakrond versus the United Proto-Drakes, and this was unique for that time. As I said, they were still very primal, but one Proto-Drake managed to get them to work together. The first attack failed of course, but thankfully the future aspects survived. The second fight was Galakrond versus Tyr and the future aspects. For those that missed out on my Titans and Oldguard video, Tyr was one of the keepers of Ulduar. He was not a Titan, but a Titan keeper. It is rumored that Tyr was the one who led the first humans who descended from the Vrykul away from Northrend and into the rest of the world. The location Tyr's Hand, for example, is named after.
The Age of Mortals has begun.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Guac, cheese, and sour cream. I'm on this. Green. Thank you.
Kalik, who only recently received his aspect powers, wants the group to stay together, but he fails to convince the others. They plan to split up the Wormrest Accord with the next meeting. Kalik flies over the bones of Galagrond, father of all dragons, and inside the bones he finds a strange artifact.
Story. Dragon aspects. Story of the aspects. Yeah. Isn't there like a lost cut content for vanilla for the dragon aspect?
Hello everyone. A couple of you asked me about the aspects, especially what they're doing after the Cataclysm, and Dawn of the Aspects tells a little bit about this. Be warned though, if you still have plans to read the novel, there will be spoilers in this video, so please turn off the video and come back at a later time. Let's begin, shall we? Alrighty, the whole setup is that the four aspects, Alexstrasza, Ysera, Nosdormu and Kalik, come together at Wormrest Temple as they always do. However, since they fulfill their destiny, the older aspects don't see the point anymore.
For the dawning of the Age of Mortals has begun.
Kalik, who only recently received his aspect powers, wants the group to stay together, but he fails to convince the others. They plan to split up the Wormrest Accord with the next meeting. Kalik flies over the bones of Galagrond, father of all dragons, and inside the bones he finds a strange artifact. This artifact unwillingly drags him into the mind of past Malygos. This has some nasty side effects on him, since the relic is not working as it should. Being so close to the corpse of Galagrond has corrupted the device, and it can bite others to transport the disease, turning those into zombies. Another effect was that it transformed Galagrond even more, made him even bigger and even more hungry. Eventually he becomes so...
okay. ACCO. I spelled it right. Steve, he's a writer. Why isn't it? Let's see.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am very happy.
Alright, let's get into it. What was the approach to building out these Shadowlands Afterlife shorts? Disparate in terms of their tone, but unified in terms of their exploration of Shadowlands and its greater themes, to make sure they each stood out in their own way. And see if the news are the following, and this is something that I always fucking love. We realized early on that Shadowlands was introducing many deep concepts that would provide our players with nuanced themes to ponder, and oh my god, did it. As we began planning the Afterlife series, we recognized an opportunity to introduce those concepts through relatable characters, including many rooted in Azeroth's history. Now, I do want to say to anyone that you know, a lot of people are sort of like listing names of people that they want to see within the Shadowlands and people that may have died. We already know that that is most likely not going to happen. There's a lot of characters or personalities that we would love to see make a comeback within the Shadowlands. that Blizzard have already confirmed will not be there, or at least they're not going to dive into it. But I do think that the characters that they've chosen, bar maybe Draka. Draka is a pretty weird character that they've chosen to make. Oh, and by the way, we found Mankirk's wife. This is not in this interview, but I just wanted to point out because a lot of you are actually pointing that out. Finally, we have her. This is the kind of storytelling that Blizzard excels at.
Is Draka Manwik's wife? Oh, good. Wow.
They introduced the character in vanilla, and they're finally ending that storyline. Do you guys see how Blizzard tells their stories? That's how that works. So never say that Blizzard doesn't do a good job of telling the story. Blizzard doesn't do a good job of telling the story in a single expansion, but fuck me, they will eventually end the story. No, we genuinely actually find Mankirk's wife in the Shadowlands. So that's a little bit of spoiler for all of you. But yeah, that is genuinely actually happening. It's a little bit of a throwback to, you know, obviously what everyone spent hours looking for in Manila. So yeah, very cool, I think. So yeah, just wanted to say, I think with the exception of Draka is a bit of a strange character, I think, being introduced, because I think there may have been better characters to introduce instead of Draka. I'm not saying Draka is a bad character. I just don't know if Draka was the best character that they could have used there. Personally, I think someone like Duratan could have been a bigger draw. It could have been someone that I would probably have cared for more. But Vash, Lady Vash being there definitely does add a lot more power to it, of course. But yeah, I still think, even though I don't necessarily agree with the Draka edition, I still think it's brilliant the way in which they chose these characters and the characters that they wanted to bring back. Opening with the iconic death of Uther, the Lightbringer, Bastion contrasted our most bright, idyllic afterlife with the hungering darkness of them all. Through Draka's ceaseless struggle, we learned that the armies of Maldraxxus had been plunged into strife and division. We followed the wild god Ursoc's spirit into Ardenweald and told a story of hard choices and painful sacrifice. And through the silky venom of Sire Denathrius in Revendreth, we showed how greed and avarice could twist a once noble society into a realm of selfishness and greed. But, I mean, alright. While each cinematic stands on its own, they build upon one another to frame the looming threats that players will face when they enter the Shadowlands. How much do the animated shorts explain some of the mechanisms at work in Shadowlands' narrative? Will there be any hints, big or small, that fans who watch the shorts will be able to pick up on or see the development of in-game? Now, as you guys know, how many hours have we spent unraveling? Is probably the best word. Trying to figure out what all of these shorts mean, where they may fit in. I think the animated shorts this time around is even better than the Warbringer series. And the Warbringer series was amazing. But I think these are truly just Blizzard blossoming into their own with these stories and how they tell the story through these animated shorts. We know that no detail, no matter how small or seemingly incidental, escapes the watchful eye of our players. That's us, by the way. We are the watchful eyes of their players. From concept to script to storyboards to animatics, all the way to final sound and images, every word and every frame is lovingly crafted in painstaking detail. Nothing is there by accident. Now, he is talking about the animated shorts, but I believe it was Alex Frigiabi, or however the fuck you say his name, who said pretty much the same thing about their general cinematics, right? Their general cinematics is exactly the same. Everything in their cinematics is chosen to be there. They're very careful, and I think it's thanks to players like us. How many of you contact me almost on a daily basis on Discord or on Twitter saying, hey dude, did you see this? Did you see this? Sending me screenshots of different cinematics with different things in them. So it's us that have pretty much forced them to do constantly better with these cinematics. So I think that's sort of cool. Players have already picked up on a number of elements that hint at larger storylines or concepts. When we depicted Uther's soul being shattered by Frostmourne, we wondered if the detail might be too subtle. But in fact, the community spotted that immediately and began speculating what that might mean for Uther and the other characters. When we showed Draka infiltrating a Burning Legion stronghold, viewers quickly picked up on a reference to an earlier cinematic and realized the implication that the Necrolords not only defend against invasions, but travel beyond the Shadowlands to neutralize potential threats. There are other details in the Afterlife series that will take on greater meaning. This is the one thing that I fucking loathe, that we have to wait before we can see what everything means. But anyways, Shadowlands feels very political in a way. In the way it explores resource scarcity, and the shorts go to great lengths to show that the regions have the capacity for good and evil. Is there a side in the Shadowlands fight that you anticipate fans will identify as the good and bad? Or do you feel like as we explore what Afterlife has established, that will be impossible to call?
I guess in a way, Gift is like
Interesting question.
It's like a new
The Newser says,
weapon.
we intended
new
for the
resource.
themes introduced in Shadowlands and in the Afterlife series to inspire conversation and debate, and I think we can all agree they fucking nailed it. It has inspired
existence of
countless
Azrael,
hours of debate and of conversation around what we think is actually going to go on here.
Yeah, the existence of that Azurite was not caused by Zoth, that was caused by taking out the Antorus, right? And then that allowed the Titans to imprison Sargeras, who set the planet, who the planet exploded as Azurite, so the blood came up from the surface. Oh, you're bad, Sally. And N'Zoth capitalized on the division that would be caused by the hunt for new rare resource that's basically only really coming up in that area. Yeah, and then N'Zoth capitalized on the it's a different trope to have like a weapon, a super resource, and to have a regular resource that is drying up. I think you combine those two together somehow. Like one resource is drying up, and you have another one that doesn't replace it, but is also powerful. I don't know how you write something like that. So it's like you have the balance of where your lifeblood is going up, but you have a weapon to fight with that will allow you to take over beings that will or some take over resources that will unlock you respect. Like using Azurite weapons to take out the other some Azurite, but like some other form of weapon that can use to take out the other Shadowlands. National Hero. That way you have resource scarcity and bring the weapon together. They're going to be. Alright.
It's not as simple as saying something is right or wrong, good or evil. Have I not been saying this for the longest fucking time? Thank you, Steve Denuser. The ecosystem of death functioned seemingly without incident for countless eons before the Arbiter ceased functioning, and the Anima drought created a scarcity of resources. Yet we see how swiftly the functions and norms within each of these realms began to break down. Such a rapid unraveling should raise the question of how healthy that system was to begin with. Should I repeat that? Or did everyone catch it? You just tell me if you need me to repeat this, if you need me to explain this, I'd be happy to. But I just want to make sure. All right, so some of you want me to repeat this. All right. The ecosystem of death functioned seemingly without incident for countless eons before the Arbiter ceased functioning, and the Anima drought created a scarcity of resources. Yet, we see how swiftly the functions and norms within each of these realms began to break down. Such a rapid unraveling should raise the question of how healthy that system was to begin with. This is an important part. The Shadowlands is not natural. The way the Shadowlands is set up is not natural. And this is effectively what he is saying. I've been saying this for the longest fucking time, and people have been arguing with me for the longest fucking time, saying, oh my god, what are you talking about, dude? The Shadowlands is where we go when we die. The Shadowlands is where we go when we die. And I'm like, it's not normal. And I just want to say, it's not about me calling this, right? Because I'm not alone in this. There's been many of you that have sort of planted that idea in my mind and helped me think of this. So I'm not taking, like, credit for this, saying, oh my god, I'm right. That's not the point here. I don't make videos to be right. Yeah? I genuinely just make videos because it's fun stories. But in this instance, that's not just a story.
Alright,
this is... If you looked at the Shadowlands, and specifically if you look at the Kyrians, no one can look at what the Kyrians are doing to mortal souls and tell me that is fucking normal. You can't. It is insane to think. But anyways, visually, we have deliberately played with perceptions and assumptions. The gleaming spires of Bastion hide a darkness growing within the ranks of the Kyrian. In contrast, the overcast skies and looming stone towers of Revendreth exude a gothic horror vibe. Yet we learn that the Venthyr exists to carry out a noble calling of redemption and rehabilitation. In the Shadowlands, nothing is exactly what it appears to be at first glance. You must always look deeper. Do you guys get why I'm so excited for the Shadowlands? Does it even make sense to people why I'm so fucking excited for this expansion? I mean, the things that Blizzard is doing here, the lessons that Blizzard have learned and that they're applying to the storytelling of Shadowlands is just, oh my god, this is going to be too fucking good, bro. As is often the way of Blizzard's best cinematics and shorts, Afterlives leaves us with a lot more questions than answers, and fuck me, is that true? How many of these threads are explored and resolved in Shadowlands, and how much can we expect to continue through the larger story of World of Warcraft? I think this is a fucking great question. While we intend this expansion to tell a focused story with a satisfying conclusion...
How many of these threads are explored and resolved in Shadowlands, and how much can we expect to continue through the larger story? How many of those threads are
I hope it ends with us being loyalists forever and being able to kill all the traitors. That would be a satisfying conclusion. It also opens up countless possibilities for the Warcraft universe. One of the most exciting aspects of bringing Shadowlands to life, pardon the pun, is the opportunity to not only explore established lore, but to build upon it and take it into tantalizing new directions. And quite frankly, I couldn't agree more. If you look at what happens in the Shadowlands, if you look at some of the older lore, specifically the Arthas stuff, and how much more clarity we have around Arthas, but then you look at what we're learning now within the Shadowlands. We're learning about Eternal Ones. We've just very recently learned that almost every single one of the cosmological forces has its own pantheon. We're learning more about the Void and the Light, and that the Void and the Light at some point attacked the Shadowlands. For what purpose? For what reason? There's so many open stories now, and more will undoubtedly be introduced to us, that from here on forward, World of Warcraft could really go anywhere. On Twitch not too long ago. Oh, by the way, just very quickly, for those of you that didn't know, I have to brag about this because I'm so fucking excited about it. We just made partner on Twitch, FYI.
Nice.
So yeah, just wanted to point that out. I didn't think I would get it. I genuinely didn't think it would fucking happen. Not the first time you apply for partnership, but it was my first application, and they sent me an email saying, hey, congratulations, you just made partner. So yeah, that's fucking great. Anyways, on Twitch, I kind of went through my headcanon theory of what I think the next expansions for World of Warcraft will be. Right? And I think the next expansion, the very next expansion, will take us back to Azeroth. Most likely to deal with initial problems with Azshara. After that, I believe we will... Well, actually, the next expansion either takes us back to Azeroth to deal with Azshara, or it takes us to Koresh. I believe that we will be going to Koresh. Koresh, I believe, is where we will learn a lot more about the Light and the Void. I don't believe that an expansion about the Light would happen without the Void being included, or about the Void without the Light being included. I believe whenever we go after any of these two forces, the other one will not be far behind. They seem to be consistently.
Where's life in Shadowlands?
Koresh is the homeworld of the Ethereals, right? Koresh is their destroyed homeworld, which I still believe to this day still exists. I believe that it was almost destroyed, but not completely. So I believe that we will be going to Koresh at some point to figure out what is going on there. Not only that, but I think that the Shadowlands itself offers far more than just these realms that we've seen. I think the Shadowlands is far more than just these realms that we've seen. In fact, this is a video that I will be making at some point. I did this last Sunday, where I discussed this with you guys. But I believe that Ny'alotha is just another name. It's the name that the Void have for the Maw.
The Maw?
I believe that the Maw is the original city of the dead. It's where souls went once they died.
Good.
I believe that that is the city that everyone is warring over. Because whoever controlled that city before Oribos was built would have controlled the flow of souls. I believe that Ny'alotha is the Maw. The Maw is the city of the damned. So, yeah, that's just my opinion on it, but I do think that our next expansions will take us to the cosmological forces. And not only that, just by the way, no, we didn't go to Ny'alotha. We went to a vision of Ny'alotha, not Ny'alotha itself. It was the vision. It was the vision that N'Zoth wanted to show us. I mean, the actual patch is called Visions of N'Zoth. We only saw what he wanted to show us. We didn't see all of it. But I believe that we're gonna go on a cosmic adventure, and the reason I believe this, which we've also discussed. I should save this as my desktop background, but I'm not gonna, because I like searching for it. What I also believe, can you not go bigger? Never mind then. Okay, so we already know this is gonna be fucking nuts. There we go. All right, so we already know that this is a zoomed in version of the cosmological forces, right? This is not the be all and end all of the cosmology map. Not at all. This is only a zoomed in version based on the limitations of what the Titans can see. The Titans cannot see beyond these lines. Outside of these lines lie the first ones, lie the Clockmaker. There may be even greater forces that lie outside of this. Fuck the shells, however. If you ask me what these things mean, I don't know. I don't care. It's shells. It means that the fish people are coming. As for the cosmological map, there are bigger things that lie outside of this that we are yet to see.
Really?
All of these things, I believe, exist beyond the Shadowlands. I believe that I don't think that the Shadowlands is that far removed from the forces of the Void, from the Twisted Nether, as Blizzard wants us to believe. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to go into those theories just now because that's going to take fucking forever and hours and hours and hours that I don't have time for. But, actually I do have time for it. My voice just wouldn't like me for that. The Chronicles book provided a window. Surprise, surprise. We're talking about the cosmology map. I have one right here. The Chronicles book provided a window in the Warcraft cosmology from the point of view of the Titans and their progeny. In Shadowlands, we get to delve into those mysteries from a different perspective, and we find out that there's far more to the nature of reality and the planes of existence than anyone had realized. Many of the concepts introduced in the Afterlife series and in the stories revealed in this expansion will tee up some very intriguing possibilities that
Just
will be
join in one at a
explored
time.
in future content. After hearing this, guys, can I just ask, how many of you are excited for the future of World of Warcraft?
I am.
Fight the Light and Void, what comes next? We take control of our physical human bodies and fight real-life issues? I don't know, quite honestly, what comes next, Seika? Alright, so many of you are exactly where I am, right? Very fucking excited. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that you guys are as excited as I am. For example, so Steve the Newser gives us an example here. From the dark reaches of the Maw to the ancient halls of Oribos, you'll hear a mention of powerful beings referred to as the First Ones. As the story of Shadowlands unfolds, we'll meet allies helping to explore the mysteries of their existence, as well as adversaries determined to plunder their secrets. Alright, so here's another really interesting thing that I genuinely, when I first read this just before the stream, actually I think I first read this last night, or it might have been this morning, but anyways, whenever I first read this, something was sort of very much standing out. We'll meet allies helping to explore the mysteries of their existence, as well as adversaries determined to plunder their secrets. Here's a question for you guys. What if the First Ones no longer live? What if the First Ones was an ancient race that created the universe? But that war or whatever killed them off. So effectively we're thinking about, we're almost going back to the stories of Mass Effect, where you get a lot of these ancient races that sort of just disappeared thanks to the Reapers. So we're sort of going, sort of heading in that direction, if you will. So they left the machine running? Yes, and so they effectively set up all of these things before a great war broke out. Maybe the Void Lords attacked and the Void Lords killed all of them, but now this entire system still exists, right? Still in its own right exists.
Yeah, multiple of them.
And they want to plunder their secrets. We want to learn the mysteries of their existence. Do they still exist? What are we going to find? Are we going to finally go to First World lands, right? To their worlds, to where
So
they
that's like
once
outside of
existed.
the continental
Personally, I think this would be a far greater story. I just feel like once you start introducing someone like First Ones, this could take the story in a sort of extreme fantasy version of the story that may not be as easily sellable, or it could very quickly become a very flaky story, right? So like how God left. Yes, Amanda. So they're pretty much just gone. And maybe we're going to learn throughout the story of Warcraft where they went or why they went, you know? These are things that hopefully we'll figure out as we go. Because right now we don't know where the First Ones are. We think that Elune might be a first one, but do we really know if she is a first one? Fuck no. We know nothing, right? This is just something that I thought would be very interesting. And then finally, we have to ask. You can't just tease Arthas in a Shadowlands narrative and then never see him again in the expansion, right? That would be evil, Stephen Noozer. At the conclusion of the first act of Shadowlands arc, there is a scene in which several of our main characters discuss the legacy of Arthas Menethil. They note that his spectre hangs over all of them like a shroud, an apt metaphor for an expansion focused on death. The story of Arthas from Warcraft 3 to its conclusion at the end of Wrath of the Lich King is one of the most iconic tales in our canon. We do not invoke his name lightly. I love the fact that they're giving him so much respect. At the same time, Shadowlands allows us to explore the origins of the darkness that consumed the heart of the young prince. In the process, we just might learn more about him and the others whose lives were forever impacted by the choices Arthas made. Is Steve Noozer telling us we're never going to meet Arthas here? We're just going to learn more about him? That would be fucking silly, right? That would be silly. How many of you think that's what he's saying?
What the fuck? There's like 10 of them.
Like, what do you think he's actually saying here? Is he saying that we'll just learn more about him? Because I genuinely can't see that happen. He has to feature. Right? Or am I just fucking wrong?
Reason? It's still turned though. Nice.
Hello everyone, Varimafras, back during the expansion region. He had quite some interesting things to say about Sylvanas, so I figured it could be
Eternally flag. Oh,
Well,
man.
thank golly I don't have employees right now. I am very, very, very happy I don't
That's
have
like a
employees
civil
right
war.
now.
I
Some
mean,
people
you know,
out there, they're
it's
like, Eli,
Subordination.
you're just jealous of Lewis. You're just jealous of how well he's doing. And then, I'm emailing Lewis back and forth, and he's like, yeah, I just had to hire another 2 employees. I'm up to 20. 20 employees. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I'm not jealous. Oh, I'm so not jealous. Employees are just... Until you have been a boss, until you have had to write checks to employees for their paychecks, you just really do not grasp the absurdity of having employees. It's just... Oh, you just sit there. And again, it's that type of thing where so many times you're like, I just don't understand what the hell's going on. One time when I had my store, so I had my store, and I designed everything so nice, and we had a nice little kitchen area. One time I came back, and we had like this 5-gallon thing of ice cream in the freezer. And I was like, why do we have a 5-gallon thing of ice cream in the freezer? And somebody said, oh, well, we're giving ice cream away down the street, like one of the businesses, whatever. I'm like, okay, so who's taking this 5-gallon of ice cream home tonight? Fucking crickets. So it's like 3 days later. No, seriously, who's doing something with a 5-gallon tub of ice cream in our freezer? Fuck, crickets. And so at the end of the week, I had to figure out something to do with a 5-gallon tub of ice cream that I didn't want. Again, if you want to take a tub of ice cream, you want to put it in the freezer, and then you want to take it home. Look, I'm not telling employees how to live their lives. I have to say, for taking a 5-gallon tub of ice cream, you know, make sure you're getting some exercise when you eat that. You know, keep the heart running. But you do you. But I just didn't understand why I, as a boss, with all of the things that I had to worry about in a day, now had to worry about what the hell to do with a 5-gallon tub of ice cream. And that's just only some of the things that you get with employees. That's only some of the things you get with employees. Having employees is just, you just sit there and you're like, really? Do I have to write a policy about this? Do I have to write about the policy? That is so absurd. I would not have even imagined this thing happening. But that's the kind of thing that you get with in the modern world of employees. And so one of the big problems that's going on right now, especially with the platforms, right? And when we talk about platforms, we talk about everything from YouTube to Netflix to Shopify to, you know, Salesforce or whatever else. So one of the big problems that we're running into with these platforms is the whole question of rules and basically how the platforms should be used and what should be authorized and what should not be authorized, and, you know, what is used for amplification and should amplification exist on the platforms, and BS. And so you get into a lot of problems, this whole question of basically how do you keep the customers, how do you keep the people that are creating value on your platform happy, and then also how do you keep the people that are consuming that value happy? So like in the YouTube world, the whole idea of how do you keep the creators happy enough to keep creating content, and then how do you keep the advertisers and the viewers happy enough that the advertisers keep advertising the content and the viewers keep watching the content. You know, one of the things I never really thought about with this, you know, because you have all these flagging systems. So Twitter has flagging systems, and YouTube has flagging systems, and Spotify has flagging systems. You know, one of the things I had not really considered. What if employees decided that they disliked the content that was being distributed on the platform that they are supporting, that they're employees of, and so they then started flagging the content? Think about this for a second. Think about not the Sleeping Giants, right? The Sleeping Giants is this Twitter movement.
So basically, you know, Joe Rogan is on a contract with Spotify, and they're kind of like tethered together. So it's like a game of chicken. Who could benefit the most, and who's going to control? Because he is a particular set of followers. Spotify is a ridiculously high amount of pressure value. So it's like they need each other, or they benefit from each other. It's quite powerful. But it's just like a game of chicken. Like, Joe Rogan isn't really pushing that much, but he has potential to really. I mean, he has a platform. You could dish him. You could rub it in. You can really like grab. And scare the stockholders if their biggest purchase is hitting them. So that's like a double-edged sword, because it's not even a double-edged sword. Like, it's literally just a machete that you have in front of your face, and you're holding it like this, and then you just slowly digging it into your skull. Not even a double-edged sword, just like a machete. And it's like just like yeah, it's. I think it's gonna ruin Spotify. Not only that, but the whole like the revenue model is like horrible. Like, musicians have trouble. I mean, even Kanye West, I mean, isn't hardly even makes any music. He's as big as he is. Like, it's a race to the bottom, and then Most people know that, even the ones who aren't honest. After Lars Ulrich sued next week. And I think you have a point, like, this is like the race to the bottom. It's not fair, like, position they're going to make for PvP. Pennies. Like, really are. Like, fractions of pennies for every play.
I've talked about its absurdity, but whatever. They have the right. If they want to scream and boycott or whatever else, First Amendment right. So we're not talking about the Sleeping Giants. We're not talking about some sect of BLM. We're not talking about Trump, not doing Goodyear tires or whatever else. So these are people that are external to the platform. These are people that are external, right? They're not the employees. But imagine for a second, imagine if the employees in your company decided to start flagging things in order to start getting things taken down. Again, what what kind of horribleness would that be for you as a boss? So that's one of the things that may be going on right now. Maybe, might be conjecture. Comes from the Wall Street Journal theoretically, but who knows? Apparently with Spotify, right? So Spotify, not Shopify, Spotify bought the rights to Joe Rogan's podcast for I think it's like 5 years for $100 million. And this was a coup. This was a coup to Spotify, right? They were able to get the #1 podcaster in the world onto their platform for 5 years. And after this year, so by the end of December, I think it is, everything's going to be exclusive onto Spotify. So the idea is if you want Joe Rogan, if you want the #1 podcaster, you're going to have to go to Spotify. He's not going to be available anywhere else, right? So the CEO and everybody's like, yay, we got Joe Rogan, we got Joe Rogan, we got Joe Rogan. Well, here's the thing in the modern world, really any world. The reason that Joe Rogan is so popular is because he has controversial people on his show, right? Yep. So he has all kinds of different people, from scientists to engineers to Alex Jones and whatever else on his show, and he basically talks to everybody, and that's one of the things that makes him very popular because he's talking to all these different types of people. The problem is again, many of the people that he has on the show are not what you would call politically correct, and they put out points of view or whatever that a lot of folks would disagree with, and so there's a real concern. There's a real concern initially about how Spotify customers would deal with this. Again, like when you think about boycotts and all that kind of stuff, if I sign up for Spotify to listen to Taylor Swift, shake it off, right? Am I going to want to continue paying Spotify if they're having some anti-LGBTQ plus speaker on there, right? And that's an interesting question. And you got to go through the whole rigmarole to figure out, is the value of having Joe Rogan, having those types of people, is that worth turning off other folks? But the question then comes up, what about if the employees, right? The employees of Spotify, the employees that have been coddled and cuddled and told that they're wonderful, told that they're amazing, told that they should just get paid for being special people. What happens if they listen to these Joe Rogan podcasts and they decide that they are offended by what Joe Rogan is doing? They are offended by what the CEO paid Joe Rogan a metric crap ton of money to do. And they start going in and flagging things. So apparently they're going in there and they're trying to flag. The employees are flagging Joe Rogan content to go to the Trust and Safety Board to get it removed. Think about the absurdity of this. So this is coming from some Reclaim the Net that they talk about the Wall Street Journal down here. The Joe Rogan Experience podcast is causing tensions within Spotify. Some more radical employees have reportedly flagged some of the podcast content. And again, I really want you to think about this for a second. When we talk about employees losing their damn minds, again, to be clear, if you are an employee, go out there and protest. Go out there and vote. Go out and donate to all the causes. You go, girl, you fly the flag, the whole 9 yards. But again, think about this, that the employees themselves are now trying to flag content as of what they dislike. Spotify acquired exclusivity of the Joe Rogan Experience, the world's most popular podcast, back in May. By the end of the year, the podcast will be available exclusively on Spotify. While the acquisition is paying off, the show has been the number one on Spotify since it arrived on the platform, has been outperforming audience expectations, and is double Spotify stock. It is causing tensions inside Spotify as some activist employees want to stick the knife in. The issue is not the host, but the guests, particularly Abigail Schreier and Alex Jones of Wall Street Journal reports. This week on Tuesday, Rogan hosted Jones along with comedian Tim Dillon. Highlight: some employees at Spotify internally flagged the episode because of Jones' comments on the mask mandate and vaccines. So think about your employees internally flagging things. From the Wall Street Journal, quote, a recent thread in the company's Ethics Club channel centered on Mr. Rogan's episode with Mr. Jones. Employees circulated information on how to flag content for review by Spotify's trust and safety team, according to people familiar with the matter. That team is responsible for determining whether shows or music on the platform violate company policies, barring content that incites violence or hatred, and can remove content if it crosses those lines. So, yeah. So, Spotify gets the number one podcaster in the world. They understand what they're buying. Again, Joe Rogan keeps artistic control. They understand what they're buying. Their customers like it because it's now the number one podcast on Spotify. So that shows that the customers like it. And Spotify stock has doubled, which makes sure it shows that the investors like it. And the employees are having a history with it. Yeah, it's so horrible. Damn you, CEO. Damn you, CEO, for bringing in somebody that's doubled our stock and is making our customers happy and so on and so forth. But you don't understand. We don't like the people that he's having on. And I do think this really brings up an interesting question with this whole idea of platforms and platform management and maintenance and how this type of thing is done. Again, as a Gen Xer, I come from the open source world, right? So when I was a young whippersnapper techie person, right? It was Linux and it was WordPress and it was Apache and it was all that kind of stuff, right? Basically the open source software. And so the interesting thing with open source software is it really doesn't matter what your political bent is, right? If Linux was developed by the Grand Pumbaa of the KKK or Mother Teresa, it doesn't really matter, right? They give you the software and then they push it out. So maybe they can do some stupid stuff. Again, maybe they can decide which APIs they will connect to and which APIs they won't, right? So if I'm the one that's designing WordPress as an open source product, I may not put an API in that connects to the Daily Stormer. All right, I may insert an API that connects to CNN.com, but not put an API in that connects to the Daily Stormer, right? Again, not that open source doesn't have bias and doesn't actually have some built-in political value determination there, but basically the product is the product is the product is the product. You get it, and then you decide what to do. If you want to code an API for or a way to connect to the Daily Stormer's API, you do that, right? The interesting thing that we're starting to see now, though, with these platforms is these platforms not only are providing this service. So back in the day,
All right, I'll be right back. I've been going like 3 minutes. Look how little damage they're doing. That's better. Come on. Man, that's like a truck. What is rank 2 of the range? Is that a pro? Probably rank 20. Yeah.
My concept of these platforms is every time you spin up a website, any time you spin up a web service, you have to have a server that has resources, that has maintenance requirements, that has administrative overhead, the whole 9 yards, right? So if you just have companies that all they do is websites, all they do is email, all they do is video distribution or whatever else, right? The administrative overhead on a per unit basis just shrinks dramatically. Again, you need one administrator to maintain one server. You need one administrator to maintain 20 servers. You need 2 administrators to maintain 100 servers. You need 4 administrators to maintain 1,000 servers. Right, so if an administrator is going to cost you $100,000 a year on a per unit basis, if you have to have one administrator and you have one server, that's $100,000 for a server. If you have four administrators for 1,000 servers, then that means the administrative cost is negligible at that point, right? So the idea being is that we're going to these platforms because, again, consolidation, bringing everything together is just much more cost effective and that kind of stuff. One of the things that we weren't thinking about when all of this stuff was getting developed is what happened if the employees lost their damn minds? What happens if the founders of these companies get mommy and daddy complexes and decide to start telling the world what is morally and ethically acceptable? And then what happens if the employees of the companies then become, the little teacher's pet and, continue on that mission to saying what we at this company will accept. We will not accept Alex Jones. We will not accept Schreier. I'm an employee for this company, and I know the morals of this company. Right? What happens in this world? What happens in a world where the employee company are flagging the things on the platform? Are they thinking about their paycheck? This is what I love about Silicon Valley and the tech industry at this point. They're not worried about their paychecks anymore. They're not worried about how to pay the mortgage. They're not worried about being fed anymore, right? They just assume. They assume that they're going to have jobs. They assume everything is going to be hunky-dory. Don't you understand? I develop in Node.js. And, if everybody learned how to develop in Node.js just like me, well, they could be doing as well as I am too, right? They have this idea that somehow they are intrinsically valuable. The reason for that is there has been so much investment money that has been dumped in the tech industry that has been wasted. The tech industry has wasted a tremendous amount of resources. But that doesn't get noticed, right? If you're an employee and you have no idea how investment works, if you have no idea how profit and revenue and all that kind of stuff works, all you know is you've been getting paid 100, 200,000, you've been getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to essentially not do much of any gosh darn thing, right? All of a sudden you get very pompous on what you feel like what you require at a company. Like, I will not work at a company that, amplifies these types of people. And then everything goes downhill. Everything goes downhill. So I thought this was curious. Again, I know Spotify has been having a problem with the employees at Rogan, and again, that's management, supervisor. That's all the supervisory stuff. That's all kind of normal. But then to be thinking about Spotify's employees internally flagging things. Like, think about that. And that might be enough. Again, we don't really know what numbers are required to do anything. Again, one of the big problems with being a content creator using any of these platforms, we don't know what numbers are thresholds. We don't know how if you hit a certain number, if you hit a certain number in a period of time when it flags things. So what happens, you have employees in a company. And let's imagine the employees in a company are also tied to the Sleeping Giants. Or something like the Sleeping Giants. So what happens when they see something that they disagree with? They tell everybody in their little group in the company to flag that content. And then they amplify the message to flag that content to all of their social media network. And now all of a sudden, that content in an hour or two may get, 1,000 flags. How does that system work itself out? How does it work out when employees are amplifying the concept of flagging the content that is bringing money and revenue and profit and all that to the company? How's that going to work out at the end of the day? How is that going to work out with the global cluster F that is coming down the pike? That is my question. Hey, when the employees get laid off, are they going to understand why they got laid off? When the gravy train derails, will they understand what their part in that mess is? I just get worried about this right now too, because I did a video where they're talking about the UK. The UK is in Brexit transition, not Brexit transition. It ends at the end of December. They do not have the full rules for trade agreements and all that completed yet. Could be a complete disaster if they don't get those trade rules implemented. At the same time, Boris Johnson is basically locking down the country for 30 days, and there's a good chance that lockdown will be continued well into 2021. The fifth largest economy in the world is getting locked down for probably months on end as it burns the hell out of the European Trade Union.
Well, they're running trade
Not including the trade war that's going on, not including all the other things that are going on right now. And I just sit here and I think about these snotty ass employees, and and this is the problem with so many of these folks. They don't know when to stop. Again, when money is pouring in, when the Sleeping Giants were at their height, when BLM is at its height, I don't know, maybe argue and yell and do some stupid stuff. But when you see the global economy going in for a massive cluster F, when you know that streaming services, the streaming wars, are going to be an incredibly brutal thing, and there's no guarantee that Spotify is going to continue to be around. Like, why is it during this period that you're still having issues with the employees? Again, just do your job. Come to work, do your job. If you don't like it, go work for another company. I don't know. It's the absurdity of the modern world of employees. So if you ask, oh, Eli, are you jealous of Lewis? Hell no. He's got 20 employees. 20!
Like, I say a lot now, use your platform for something good, which means for the employees, the platform is their job for Spotify. And by flagging Alex Jones, they're doing their movement service in their minds, I think. It's worth risking their job and career to bring that guy down. That's what I believe. The guy just kicked me in the curb. Okay, you want to risk your job? Okay, bye. Same thing with, actually, this is even smarter because before they, was it Spotify? I think they had basically buy away employees that were radical. Just pay them and tell them to get out. It's a severance, really. But just for good reputations and good, smooth things over. It's worth it, I guess. Then, yeah, this is actually smarter because you definitely have to fire those employees because if you don't, that sets a precedent that they can just use your business as a political platform, which is very risky, especially with freedom of freedom of speech and all that. See how it goes.
No, I had 9. I had 9. Fuck. I'm surprised I survived my 9. Can't imagine 20. Oh. Anyways, again, it's an important thing with when you hire people to think about that culture thing and think about who you're hiring and what they're going to be like going into the future.
Yep.
So, anyways, put your thoughts down in the comment section down below. What do you think about Spotify's own employees internally flagging content? As always, if you like these shows, you want them in audio-only format, you can do them on iTunes, Podbean, and Spotify. Not everything makes it to YouTube, so if you want to consume everything that I do, or see everything that I do, make sure to go to one of those podcasting services. As always, if you could leave us a review on iTunes, that would be ever so lovely. And with that, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to smile. I'm going to be so thankful I don't have employees right now. Because I see this, and it's like, last thing in the world I want right now is an employee.
Depends on what you're talking to. I mean, especially if you're in the communication technology, it's really, they mean you hijacking your shit. Oh yeah. Man, remember having to actually read the quest section a while ago? I kind of miss that. But I mean, you can always do it. I remember having to use the Thoughtbot. Anyway, only if I had real trouble like executing. But I always try to read it. Classic, and the dog. And I think Mary's wife, the Hills quest with the bears and the spiders, and there I think a few more that I had to read. Or really, because the drop rate for the bear spider quest was insanely low. It was like 5%. You had to kill shit to that. It had been a bug or something. to. I have a portal that or check on them. Maybe later. When I get like 40. Where's the innkeeper? Alright, thanks for coming in. I'll be back on at